Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Giant Take podcast. I'm Josh, and if you could tell, if you're watching, I'm not joined by my friend and co-host Alex. Quick little explanation: we were coming home from vacation. Alex got stuck overnight in the airport down in Atlanta, Georgia. So he's flying back currently as we're recording this. What is it, Tuesday morning now, free agency? Hope his flight back is safe and everything goes well, and he'll be back the next time the Giants sign people because it doesn't seem like they're stopping anytime soon. But we're still recording here, and we have my friend Cooper Kleinberg who's with us as well. The most important thing, Cooper is a big Giants fan, so it's not like we're bringing on some random guy who doesn't even support the team. He's a big Giants fan, and he also writes for a couple places as well. So Cooper, obviously, feel free to plug the stuff that you do, and how you're doing on this fine morning after the Giants signed a bunch of guys.
I'm doing well. Free agency is exciting. And I've been breaking the news on you can find me on Pro Football Sports Network. I'm doing some fantasy analysis on Fantasy Pros, and most importantly, I'm ready to talk about some Giants today.
Yeah, absolutely, and I'm excited to have you on. As we like to do in our free time. Some people might just call us nerding out, but every time we hang out, it always just seems like it's more ball knowledge and how much can we talk about of deeping out. With the other day, we were doing some like 2019 and old Knicks roster
Yep.
talk, just going through our childhood there. So I'm happy to have a ball knower here on the show today, and we'll go in chronological order of the signings, even ending with Greg Newsome, who just signed within minutes of recording this. And obviously, we'll both be having Twitter refreshing to see if there's any more as we record. But I guess John Harbaugh making his stamp early on as the new Giants head coach, bringing in Isaiah Likely. 3 years, $40 million can be up the upside, the upworth, whatever it may be, of 47.5 million if everything goes well incentives wise for Likely. That's the third highest paid tight end in the NFL with those numbers. So I'll lay that on the ground first. I'll put the chips in, and I'll say my initial reactions is Likely is one of those tight ends that you've seen the peaks, you've seen the highs, and then you've seen the dips of, okay, he's just kind of an average tight end in the NFL. Now, the way that he's getting paid, John Harbaugh immediately puts him above Theo Johnson as the starting tight end on the Giants. But not only that, he is supposed to be now a playmaker on this team. When he was on the Ravens, he was definitely used in a versatile mindset, with Lamar being not only a rushing guy outside the numbers, but also a passing quarterback. So it's a little weird how that offense works. But now it's more with Likely on the offensive side of things. He's going to be used, yes, as a blocker, of course, for Scatterbo, Tracy, or if the Giants sign a running back eventually. But I think more as a pass catcher. I think Harbaugh is going to really lean on him to be a versatile and a pivotal piece on this Giants offense. Cooper, I don't know if you agree.
I do agree. I know everyone's saying it's a lot of money, but I mean, you see the deal Alec Pierce got when everyone was up in arms about Christian Kirk a few years ago when he got that 4 years, $72 million. Like I think Likely's a good player and he brings a lot to this Giants offense they didn't have before. What they really need at tight end is an explosive guy, someone that could win down the field. And while I don't think he ever topped 500 yards in a season with Baltimore, he was also operating behind Mark Andrews. When he got his opportunities, he really showed out. And the best thing about him is he works really well in the scramble drill, which is exactly what Dart likes to do. He likes to find his tight ends. There was too many times last season where he was rolling out, throwing it down the field to Theo Johnson, Daniel Bellinger, and they wouldn't come up with the play. But I think that's something Isaiah Likely excels at. And when you look at their receiving core last year, you had players like Darius Slade and Wan'Dale Robinson. They're solid, but they could only win in certain roles. And I think Isaiah Likely, a big, fast tight end, that's something you could use.
I think also when you look at Likely stats from last year, only 27 catches, 300 yards and like, it's not numbers that are jumping off of paper. This is a contract that is really feeding the future in terms of what John Harbaugh's thinking is for a guy who I believe is only 25 years old, that he's not going to be what he's going to be when this contract is over. That's the expectation. That's the hope, that going into what would be like the prime years of his career, I'm putting my quotes up for everyone listening,
Yep.
because right now you're just kind of betting on future success by making the signing of him and paying him that much money is your hope. And John Harbaugh knows him well than anyone else who's probably on this Giants staff right now. That's why he decided to put this money on the table. He believes that likely can be a future player and a better future player than he is just right now.
Yeah. And typically with tight ends, you have to give them a few years to grow into their role. And I think Harbaugh, he's getting his guys. We'll talk about the punter later, but he wants his guys in the building, his guys that he trusts and the guys that he knows could win.
Do you think that, the difference with Dart and Jackson is going to be an adjustment? Having probably a player in Lamar Jackson where Isaiah Likely, if he ran a route, he might have started on the left side of the field where he had a slant. And then he just had to kind of run along the side with like Lamar wherever he would go if he had to end up blocking if Lamar took off. Or because I know Dart is similar in the way that he's also going to scramble, but I think they're not the same quarterback by any means.
Yeah, that's a fair point. I think it may be getting some used to, but if Isaiah Likely's on the field for 80% of the plays instead of 50% of the plays, you're gonna
Right.
you're gonna really see that.
And I think it'll be interesting too, because I feel like with the Brian Dable offensive scheme, Cooper, we saw so many of these like jumbo package sets where it would not just be one, but like three. You had Manhurts on the left, then you got Bellinger and Theo Johnson on the right side. I'm curious with John Harbaugh, but more, I guess, importantly, Matt Nagy's offense, right? Because he's the offensive coordinator now of the Giants, what he decides to do in terms of his tight end sets. Now Daniel Bellinger goes elsewhere in free agency, but Theo Johnson's still on the roster. I believe Chris Manhertz also re-signed. So those three guys are now the package there. How does Nagy use his tight ends? Does he do these, sets where he has all three guys on at the same time? Is he more going to just like an offensive package where he has another running back in there or another receiver and he only has one or two tight ends on the field at a time? That's what my thought is.
It's hard to tell because I mean Matt Nagy, while he was in the Chiefs building, I don't necessarily think he was calling the plays or designing the plays or formations. Back in his time with Chicago, not really too sure there, but we know John Harbaugh. He loves to use three tight end sets. Last year he was doing it. Andrews, Likely, Charlie Kolar, who is a good blocking tight end. Of course, as you mentioned, they have that in Manhurts. So we could see a lot of three tight end sets. As for the running back rotation, I'm not really sure about that. I guess we'll wait to see if they draft a guy. Maybe they'll throw out Scadaboo and potentially Jeremiah Love in some formations, but that's a conversation for another time.
Yeah, and it seems like that's going to be where the Giants are leaning now at running back with all the signings they're making, not one of them being a running back. Re-signing Devin Singletary, if you want to call that your running back signing, sure. But that's what we have on Likely. And it's funny you mentioned Nagy. Just one more thing with the play calling. People say John Harbaugh's not a play caller. He's a special teams guy. People say Matt Nagy's not a play caller because he's an offensive coordinator more and he's, working with guys individually. Well, one of them has to step up and is going to call plays. So, that's something to keep in mind for sure as we move down the line here. But speaking of special teams and John Harbaugh's specialty, as we can call it, the Giants' second signing of the day. All these teams are paying bunches of money to all these other guys. Mike Evans is up there, Travis Etienne, etc. The Giants are like, no, we want our punter for the future. Jordan Stout gets signed early in the afternoon yesterday. And it was hilarious because now we talked about the third highest paid tight end. We now have the highest paid punter, 3 years, $12.3 million deal. And Jordan Stout, I mean, not only was he an all-pro last year, he also made his first Pro Bowl. I mean, it is a fair replacement for Jamie Gillen, the Scottish Hammer, who I think kind of had his downward trajectory since originally signing with the Giants and along the years. I think it was 4 years he was with this team. So I was seeing Ravens fans' reaction to this, and they were saying it was rightly so. They were upset that he was gone, but they thought the money was fine. And I also agree, Cooper. I mean, this market is always going to, and this is for every position, is going to ever evolve. It's going to always get bigger. So honestly, right now, the Giants will get a deal because if you look at this down the line, if he continues what he's done so far. In 2 years from now, you'll be saying, okay, look at the punter market now. The Giants made a good signing by getting him at this price when they did in the 2026 offseason.
Yeah, you know what this reminds me of? I think it was 2 years ago. The second free agency opened, the Chicago Bears went out and signed DeAndre Swift, and 2 hours later, the Eagles signed Saquon Barkley for a very, very similar price. It's like, do we really have to go out first thing free agency, sign a punter for, is it the biggest punter contract in NFL history? I know it is in the league right now. So it's like 4 million plus a year. I mean, if that's Harbaugh's guy, then I guess bring him in.
I guess so, but we'll compare to Gillen because I want to just look at that real quick. In 2025, Jamie Gillen, he was active for 16 games, punted 55 times. Shout out the Giants' lackluster offense for that. Placed 28.8% of them inside the 20. That was 29th in the league. He also posted 36.9 net average. That was 30th in the league. And then his average starting field position off a punt, negative 27.8, 31st in the league. Stout for the Ravens, averaged 49 or 44.9 net yards last season, first in the league. Placed 45.3% of his punts inside the 20-yard line. That was 7th in the league. And the Ravens punt coverage unit held opponents' starting field position off punts to a negative 22.5. That was 9th in the league. So you can tell Jamie Gillen at the bottom half of the NFL, which it was funny because when they made the signing, I was like, I thought Gillen was a solid punter. Then I actually looked at his stats from last year. He was in his first few years with the Giants. And then this year, or last year, I guess, went off just the rails. So did the rest of the team. But Stout, in this case, very good in comparison. And I guess would make sense for the signing. I know it was the second one of the day, and you're like, oh, you're already paying a punter, Cooper. I know you kind of just mentioned that, but that's Harbaugh's thing is special teams. Kind of gives me Joe Judge vibes, which is scary, but John Harbaugh is not Joe Judge by any means.
Yeah, Harbaugh's proved it in the past, so I get that. And one final note, you're not really going to notice Jordan Stout unless he pulls off something like Michael Dixon did this last postseason where he was just pinning the ball inside the 5 every other possession. And it's like, hopefully we get that out of him. Hopefully we're in that position to see that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's like, it's always with special teams and kickers, right? They're always just supposed to do their job. You don't know their names until they do something that's out of the ordinary. And that's kind of like how the special teams roles go. But someone who is certainly out of the ordinary in a good way, the next Giant signing we have, linebacker Tremaine Edmunds. This was a really fun one for me. And Cooper, I know you like this deal as well, but let's get into the contract of it. 3 years, 36 mil, 23.7 mil of that fully guaranteed. In 2024 was the youngest player in NFL history with 100 career games played and has direct connections to Joe Schoen, who originally, I guess, helped draft him as the assistant GM of the Buffalo Bills, the 16th overall pick back in 2018. He made 2 Pro Bowls in 4 years with Buffalo. Left, got paid with the Chicago Bears, spent a couple of years with them. Now at 27 years old, has started 13 games in each of his 8 seasons, 119 starts in total now, over 900 tackles and 100 tackles every single season. In 13 games this past year, had 112 tackles, 4 of his 14 career interceptions. Great size, long arms, and the ability to drop in coverage. Cooper, we got a coverage linebacker. That's something that the Giants have been looking for, waiting for, and finally getting, something Bobby Okereke just could not do.
Yeah, oftentimes Giants were just leaving wide open zones in the middle of the field, not making big tackles. So thankfully with Edmunds, we'll get both of those things. Obviously, as you mentioned, he was a machine tackling people in both Buffalo and Chicago. My only concern here is I believe Ben Johnson is a genius, and I'm a little bit worried the Bears decided to cut him before free agency, but I understand a lot of that is due to the money. So what do you think about the contract specifically?
I mean, it's like, because I was looking at the other guys that were getting signed, and like Alex Singleton and the other Alex Anzalone too. This is like a linebacker market. Everyone's looking for linebackers. Everyone's always looking to improve the linebacker position. I just think that how much of a tackling machine he is, and finding someone who's in their prime and to sign him for this amount of money, I like. Here's the thing. I wish you lessened the contracts when you signed your punter and when you signed Isaiah Likely. That's where you should have shaved off the money and you left it for a guy like Tremaine Edmunds, who's already proven what he can do, right? Likely, we're still kind of waiting to see. And also, Stout is still young. Like, he made his first Pro Bowl, which is great, but he's still young too. Like, who knows? He hasn't had consistent year after year progression yet. So, Edmunds is a guy that would make sense to me to put your money where your mouth is, and he's kind of done that already. In signing when he did with the Bears, he has continued to just play well, and it's kind of a plug and play guy because once he gets inserted in, he's going to be, I believe, the starter of this linebacker. He's going to be the number one guy, and then behind him, you'll have Micah McFadden, you'll have Masua, right? You'll have Chris Board. But I just think at 6'4", 251 pounds, Edmunds just is your guy. He has the size and he has the coverage capabilities. It's something that the 31st ranked defense in run defense for the Giants, it's something that they needed. And Edmunds can be that guy. So I don't know. I'm fine with it. Do you disagree?
No, I'm pretty neutral on the signing. I think you just needed to get talent in the building on that defense. Of course, everyone last year was hyping up that front seven because you had so much talent across the D line.
Right.
But when you looked at the linebacker core, it wasn't so inspiring. And obviously, Bobby Okereke let us down. So Tremaine Edmunds, he's going to be he's going to be the signal caller. He's going to be the leader on that defense. I think he's won most of his career, especially with Buffalo. So hopefully he could bring some of that to New York. And
in this most recent season with the Bears, they won too. So a winning player. That's a winning culture. That's something the Giants see in the building. I feel like that's something they also talked about last year. Like, I felt like every post-game press conference, it was the same thing over and over again. You talk to Kayvon or you talk to Dart or, Malik Neighbors. They haven't won yet. I mean, think about those guys' season so far. I know Dart's only in his rookie year, but like every week they were just talking about, we just want to win. We need a winning culture. They don't know what that feels like, right? So, bringing in a guy like Tremaine Edmunds, you can ask him questions like, and this is I'm being ironic or sarcastic, but like, a guy like Kayvon or whoever it is, Malik can be like, so how does it feel to be in a playoff game? Like, what is that atmosphere like? Like, how can I prep for that? How can we turn it into that? Because he's seen it a ton at Buffalo. Not have they won the big game? No, when he was there. They still haven't won the big game even after he left. But they made it, and they had winning seasons. So, I hated it too when John Harbaugh originally got to the Giants and everyone was like, well, he had all these winning years, but no, not many Super Bowl rings. It's like, it's so hard. It's impossible almost to win a Super Bowl, right? But to have this many winning seasons is something the Giants have not seen. But anyway, so that's the Tremaine Edmunds signing. The Giants got him locked down, and then returner as well. I mean, I don't really have much on him because we've seen him the past few years, and it was a signing that when it was first made, you were like, okay, this could be stability on the tackle position for a little bit. Who knows how long? But Tremaine Edmunds has really put his stamp as one of the best offensive linemen on this team, if not the NFL. Very solid player. He signs for 3 years, $39 million. So very similar kind of money-wise, Cooper, to the Tremaine Edmunds deal. And that includes $26 million guaranteed and just solidifies our tackle position once again for another year with Andrew Thomas and Tremaine Edmunds side by side.
Yeah, sometimes it's tough to tell with the tackle position because you're not eyeing it down every single play. But Tremaine Edmunds is a fan favorite, and I think he played well last year. So I'm excited to have him back on this deal.
Yeah, me as well. I think Edmunds is just a solid player, and I said a fan favorite. If you look through his Twitter timeline recently, he's just saying, I love this place. I've always loved playing here. I love you guys as the fans. And he's always kind of responding on social media. He's kind of one of the biggest guys there. Is like him and Darius Slayton. I always feel like pop up in my timelines throughout the year of different things. So happy to have him back. And it makes sense. I think the contract a little hefty, but again, it's just the markets at this point in time. And you got to, I mean, look at Tyler Linderbaum's deal.
Yeah.
I mean, would I say wholly overpay for a center? Absolutely. This guy's not even the best center in the NFL. Probably not even a top 3 center in the NFL, to be completely honest. But he was the top free agent available at the center position. And that's just kind of the money that he got. I'm happy it wasn't the Giants that gave him that deal. Now, do I think the Giants need a center with how bad JMS has been since being drafted? Absolutely. But maybe that's, again, something that we can talk about come draft time. Cooper, the next position, safety, Dane Belton goes in MetLife Stadium, but to the New York Jets. So the Giants have to do something to replace him. They signed Darius Washington, 1-year deal worth $3 million. Another reunion with John Harbaugh. He tore his Achilles late in 24, returned back for the end of 2025, but had a really good season in 2024 for the Baltimore Ravens. His career totals: 81 combined tackles, 3 sacks, 2 picks, 10 pass deflections, 2 forced fumbles. That 2024 year that I talked about. Career high in tackles was 60, interceptions with 2, and pass deflections with 7. He became a midseason starter because of that, and then unfortunately tore his Achilles, which left him playing just the last 4 games. But Darius Washington, kind of a project here, Cooper. I mean, definitely will be like a third string guy for the Giants. Not directly a great replacement of Dane Belton, who I feel like has had more starting time and has, just played more in general, to be honest. But a guy that has shown promise, and now having a full offseason of recovery after that torn Achilles, hopefully should be fun.
Yeah, I mean, he's more of a replacement level player, as you mentioned. He was solid a couple seasons ago, so if he could bring that to the Giants safety room, they need interceptions. I mean, at least we're not the Jets recording 0 in a year, but if we could get some playmakers on that back end, that would be nice.
Can we just talk about how unfortunate the Javon Holland career has been so far? The trajectory of Javon Holland. Now, I know everything last year was bad, but I mean, those two, and of those two I'm referencing is Paulson Adebo and Javon Holland getting signed last offseason. We're thinking we're balling in the backfield, in the back end, and the defensive end, I should say, of this Giants secondary. And yet it just seemed like everyone got open. So what was that about?
I mean, the Debo was pretty solid with the Saints, and Holland was pretty solid with the Dolphins, and then just bring him to the Giants and it all falls apart. It's just brutal. Hopefully things get better next year. Of course, Harbaugh has had some seasons where he's led a top-ranked defense, so hopefully he could do the same with this group.
That is true. And I think I've always been a fan of, I've always liked Tyler Nubin. I've never had bad things to say about him. I think since the Giants have drafted him, he's gotten better each year, but definitely a need for improvement. And hopefully that's something that Darius Washington can help bring to the Giants. And next on the list, I mean, this could be another quick one like Illuminor, but even quicker. Isaiah Hodgins just happened to get thrown in the mix yesterday, got re-signed by the Giants, had stints with practice squads last year in San Francisco and Pittsburgh, and then he played 70 receptions, 749 yards, and 8 touchdowns in his NFL career so far. Cooper, if you have a quick word on Isaiah Hodgins, how much you like him from his one playoff game against Minnesota a few years ago, or anything else you want to bring up?
I mean, yeah, real quick, I guess that Vikings game was pretty legendary from him. He's always been on and off the practice squad. He might have been with Shane back in Buffalo too, obviously. Now they're here together in New York. I only really remember him scoring last year against the Lions. He had a nice toe tap play. Of course, they ended up losing that game in overtime. Brutal, but he'll kind of operate as like a depth receiver, just as he always has.
Yeah, and maybe not even make the roster. I mean, I'm sure he will, but we'll see. Kind of like the gift that keeps on giving, Isaiah Hodgins and Giants practice squads. That's what we have there. And then, I mean, I'll keep refreshing Twitter. This might be the last signing for right now, Cooper, unless we get something in the tail end of this episode. But Greg Newsome got signed this morning, who a familiar name to most. I mean, I thought that this is a pretty solid signing. I'm seeing it's worth up to $10 million as of right now. We haven't had unless you can find it, but I don't think we have the exact number of the contract, but it's up to 10 mil. So I'm assuming it's like probably a 6.5, and then with incentives gets up there. But he got extended on his rookie deal by the Browns this past season, then actually got traded for a 6th-round pick, and Tyson Campbell and a 7th-round pick was the trade there, and went to Jacksonville for a little bit. But he's been in 12 games, 11 starts for the Jaguars in 2025, 59 career games, 47 starts, 178 tackles, 3 picks, 37 PBUs, and 6 tackles for loss. And by the way, Cooper, a little bit before we recorded, we were talking about having players that are younger but with experience. You talked about before we hopped on the mics, Tremaine Edmunds only being 27 and playing, what was it, 7? What was the stat you had? 7 seasons, Tremaine Edmunds?
I believe he's heading into his 9th year.
Yeah.
So he came in the league, I think he was the youngest player in the NFL.
And we had that stat on him that I mentioned, that he was what was it, the youngest player to ever reach 100 tackles or something like that a couple of years ago in 2024. Yeah. And then here's the thing with Greg Newsome. Greg Newsome's only 25. I believe he'll be 26 by the time the season rolls around, but is going into what I think is his 6th year. So, I mean, these are 2 guys now, and I know different quality of players, but just still younger guys. They're not even reaching 30 yet, and they're at veteran statuses, playing the same amount of years as maybe, a guy in a locker room that could be 29, 30 years old, and having the same amount of snaps as them, if not more, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, and I believe Greg Newsome was a former 1st-round pick. I think in his 2nd or 3rd year, people were starting to say oh, this guy's going to be a star, because the Browns defense, despite everything, has been solid. You, of course, had Myles Garrett, Denzel Ward, and Greg Newsome, who people thought, was going to be a breakout corner, and he did earn that 2nd contract. Of course, ended up getting traded, but hopefully this defense could unlock him, because between this front 7, they should get to the quarterback quick. All you have to do is hold up for a few more seconds. They couldn't do that last year, but with Newsome there, hopefully they get something out of him.
And that's going to be the fill at CB2 with the Giants. Now, Paulson Adebo, obviously the starting number 1 cornerback, and then Greg Newsome is going to fill in the gap at where I guess that right cornerback spot is. If Adebo's on the left side, I'm trying to think about it in my head. And then you'll have your slot guy as Drew Phillips was what it was last year. And then down the line is Banks, Corey Black, etc. I mean, I'm trying to think who else who's on that. Art Green. Yeah. I mean, but
they lost Flott, didn't they?
Yeah. They lost Flott, as they did apparently did Flott also get signed to the Titans too?
I believe it was Wandell, Bellinger, and Flott.
Yeah, the Giants feeders, the Tennessee Titans, they just want to be us so badly. I don't know what they're chasing there. It's not perfection, I'll tell you that much.
Yeah, but Dable didn't see much winning here, so I don't know if he brings our players over there, what's going to change. But Cam Ward's a good quarterback, so
yeah, I know you're a big Cam Ward guy. I listen. Credit to Wandale, he's getting the money that he wants. I was going to say deserves. I don't know if he deserves it, but I was okay with seeing Wandale walk. I'm going to be completely honest. There are only a few players that I was upset with them leaving, and I think Flott, if you were going to pay someone the money, I thought it would be him to stay. I'd rather it have been him than Wandale Robinson. I feel like Wandale still really hasn't proven it for me, in my opinion, why he should be worth that amount of money. I feel like the Giants signed a very similar contract to Kenny Golladay a few years ago, right? 4 years, $72 million. I'll remember that contract.
Yep.
Yeah, probably close to the day I die, because that Kenny Golladay deal was not worth a single penny of that $72 million. And Wandale Robinson gets a very similar amount. And by the way, at that time, Kenny Golladay was one of the top 10 most proven wide receivers in the NFL, right? So we'll look at Wandale, and what has he really proven besides this last year where he was the only pass catcher there because Skadbu was injured, Malik Neighbors was injured, and the Giants had Cooper, let's be honest, a bunch of players who wouldn't really be on an NFL roster if it wasn't for all those injuries. So, of course, Wan'Dale's going to get all the targets.
Yeah, Wan'Dale Robinson's a fine player, and I'm sure he'll be fine in Tennessee, but I'm totally okay with the Giants moving on from him. Of course, you have Neighbors and Likely, and you're going to draft someone else, and Slayton's
Yeah.
still under contract, I believe.
Yeah, he should be. He should be. Yes, I mean, he's still on the roster as of now. I believe he is. So Darius Slayton will still be there. Let me go and let me check Spot Track to just confirm that he's got a deal. I feel like he did. Yes, he will be a UFA in 2028. He signed the 3-year deal. That's what it was. He signed last offseason, and then people were upset about that because that was not, shouldn't have happened. But he's always been a consistent, weapon for this team, I guess you could say.
Just gotta reel in 1 or 2 more deep balls, and it'll be perfect.
Right. Catching has always been an issue. And he can't do it. So, all right. I think we have everything. Tom Pelissero, for some reason, 7 minutes ago, just tweeted about Dane Belton signing with the Jets. I'm sorry, Tom. I think you're a little late to that one. I feel like we had that Dane Belton news yesterday, but everyone's got to get their sleep, I guess. So it is what it is. But that's Giants free agency day one reaction. Cooper, I mean, just overall, in comparison to years past, I mean, what do you make of this with John Harbaugh? I feel like kind of getting in there and putting the Giants on the map a little bit more than we've seen recently.
I mean, just spend the money, get talent, get winning players, and go out there next season and win. Obviously, there's still some more moves to come around the edges. You're going to hopefully make some splashes in the draft and fill out this roster. You have talent across the board. You have Dart, you have Neighbors, Dexter Lawrence, Brian Burns, Abdul Carter. Just fill around those edges. We were not that bad last year. Just better coaching and a little bit more talent. And I think we could do something this year.
Well, I feel like we say that every year, but I hope the Giants can as well. Thank you for joining me for this, filling in for Alex on his absence. Hopefully he makes it back to Boston and makes it back on the next episode of this show. And you might even see Cooper a little bit more next year. We'll be roommates. So we already watched mostly all the games together this year. We'll probably will again next year, obviously, of course, now living together. So it'll be fun. But Cooper, if you want to give one last shout out to your stuff where people can find you on the web and find your articles.
Yeah, so PFSN, you could see some of my NFL breaking news articles, and then Fantasy Pros for any fantasy analysis. But thank you, Josh. I'm glad we got to talk some Giants today.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Always fun. And if you want to support the Giant Take a little bit more, you can follow us on our social platforms at the Giant Take Pod. You can also subscribe on YouTube or Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you are listening. I'll be updating the social medias, obviously, with everything that goes on. Maybe some more signings today on Tuesday. But for right now, that's all we got. Thanks so much for listening and watching this episode of the Giant Take Podcast, and we'll see you next time. Peace.